The power structure of the Gotei 13 is one that we become deeply familiar with as we progress through the story of Bleach. From the captains to the lieutenants, to the third seats, all the way down to the unseated officers within each division, Kubo does an excellent job of breaking down how each of the Gotei 13 squads function. But what casual readers tend to overlook is what the other Shinigami bring to the table aside from the captains. But to be fair, can you blame them when the captains are easily the most prominent and active members of the Gotei 13 with some of the coolest power-ups that we see in the story? From their cool designs to their awe-inspiring Bankai, as well as their larger-than-life personalities, it's easy to understand why the captains overshadow all of the other Shinigami below them. But in this video, I want to shine a spotlight onto the lieutenants of the Gotei 13, trying to explain how each of them have crafted their unique identities and how they prove that they can stand out despite the oversized shadow that the captains cast over them. All of the lieutenants within the Gotei 13 are fully fledged characters who have their own lives, relationships, and connections with the captains that they serve under. The lieutenants are a perfect example of Kubo's ability to create deep and extremely lovable characters, and in this video I'll be ranking my top 5 favorite lieutenants within all of Bleach. But this list isn't just based on their power, I'll be taking into account their characterization as well as their overall narrative relevance. So with all of this said, let's dive into my ranking for the top 5 lieutenants. Before the video begins, only 12% of the people who watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. So we start off with the number 5 spot, which goes to Rangiku Matsumoto, the lieutenant of the 10th division. In general, lieutenants or vice captains exist to help and support their respective captains, and this is a role that Rangiku plays passably well. We can all agree that she has a very close relationship with Hitsugaya, her captain, as she begrudgingly performs her duties and sometimes ends up having Hitsugaya do most of her work due to how lazy she is, because she'd rather go drinking with her fellow lieutenants than actually do paperwork. So get the thought out of your head that she actually got the 5th spot on this ranking list because she does her job very well. Now while she isn't the best at fulfilling her duties as a lieutenant, she is in fact a very well written character, and first and foremost this is because of her personality, because Rangiku is a relatively easygoing and fun-loving character, and it's these personality traits that she indulges in that result in the detriment of her ability to fully perform as a lieutenant. Now at first glance it's very easy to write her off as just a lazy, playful and self-absorbed woman, but beneath her playful exterior lies a very thoughtful and caring heart, and she best demonstrates this when she is able to understand the true feelings of those around her. For example, when she was able to understand Orihime hiding her feelings of sadness during the Arrancar arc, or when she had mended her relationship with Izuru-Kira, who ended up fighting her on Gin's behalf during the Soul Society arc. And speaking about Gin, he plays a massive role within her character development, and it all stems from the relationship that these two characters share. She was the reason behind why Gin had joined Aizen in the first place. She was also one of the first characters within Bleach to have been revealed to possess a fragment of the Soul King within them, and this was a fragment that was stolen by Aizen so that he could create his own Hokyoku. Now it was because of this irreplaceable part of Rangiku that Aizen had taken which had led to Gin joining Aizen in an attempt to kill him, and to return to Rangiku that piece of her which was stolen from her. I definitely think that the relationship between Gin and Rangiku deserves its very own video, because there's a lot to talk about the subtle dynamic that exists between the two of them, and all of it underpins the motives of Gin within the story. So she's not only an already well developed character, but she also has incredible narrative potential that hopefully Kubo may expand upon in the Hell arc. Additionally, Rangiku excels in her combat skills, as she is very proficient in Kido and Shumpo, and her Zanpakuto Hinako gives her incredible versatility within battle, but unfortunately her power does lack in comparison to the other lieutenants that are ranked slightly above her within this top 5 list. Moving on to the number 4 spot, we have none other than Shuhei Hisagi, the lieutenant of Squad 9. Now he is a character who is totally blown up in popularity since his first reveal within the manga, and in interviews Kubo has even stated that he never expected Hisagi's character to have become so popular, and trust me, as I'm about to explain, his popularity is definitely well deserved. Aside from being fully committed to his lieutenant duties, he's also a very well developed character. Hisagi's journey towards finding his own warrior's path and understanding what it means to be a Shinigami are aspects of his character that contribute to Bleach's central theme of courage, and how we should never stop moving forward no matter what fear stands behind us. This is a philosophy that he learns from his former captain Kaname Tozen, who teaches him that fear is an eternal eternal constant in the human experience, and that it's an absolute necessity for a Shinigami to fear the sword that they wield in order to truly deserve being called a warrior. Now, while there's nothing fundamentally wrong with this philosophy, it does however lead to Hisagi fearing and almost hating his own Zanpakuto, Kazushini. He had wrongfully started to believe that his Zanpakuto was the one thing that he feared and hated the most. He believes that his Zanpakuto was made solely to reap lives. It's because of this misunderstanding which had prevented Hisagi from accessing his full potential, because ultimately his resentment for his Zanpakuto had made him afraid of killing. Within the very appropriately titled Can't Feel Your Own World light novels, he's forced to face his Zanpakuto and to finally gain a proper understanding of what his blade is trying to tell him. This results in him gaining full access to his Zanpakuto's capabilities, as well as granting him the power of his own Bankai. It's interesting to note that while having a Shikai is one of the main requirements for becoming a lieutenant, but every lieutenant who is ranked in the 4th and above spot within this list have all acquired their Bankai in addition to their Shikai. Now, before the events of the Can't Feel Your Own World light novels, Hisagi's Shikai originally exhibited no special abilities, but after he gains access to his full potential, his Shikai is finally revealed to possess a self-healing ability. As with a number of Bleach powers, it is pretty broken because it grants him a degree of immortality, which exists as long as he possesses enough spiritual pressure to keep this ability going. Thanks to this power alone, it makes him one of the toughest fighters within all of Bleach. But in all honesty, this is nothing in comparison to his Bankai, which is called Fushi no Kojo. It's a Bankai that manifests a world that embodies Shuhei's deepest craving. It uses his fear of killing and being killed, and it creates a world of eternal rebirth, where both Hisagi and his opponent are unable to die, and they are continuously healed from all of their wounds by a Reiatsu pool made from his and his opponent's combined Reiatsu. It's an ability that grants an eternal stalemate, mimicking the primordial world that existed before the Soul King had remodeled all of reality. So it's the combination of excellent character writing combined with some incredible abilities which earns Hisagi the number 4 spot on this list. But it's going to take a lot more than a power to stalemate an enemy in order to earn a higher spot on this ranking list, as we move on to the number 3 spot, which goes to none other than Chojiro Sasakibe, the absolute GOAT that we didn't know we needed. Now, he is a character who essentially has found new life thanks to the Bleach 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. Before his death, Sasakibe was nothing more than a background extra, but the impact that his death has upon Yamamoto helps us to understand just how much of an incredible character he was, and why Sasakibe becomes one of the breakout stars of the first core of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. Sasakibe had unparalleled loyalty and devotion to his beloved captain and mentor, head captain Yamamoto Genryusai. Sasakibe's entire existence was defined by what he could do for the head captain. He had attained Bankai even before Shunsui and Ukitake were born, but due to his desire to never leave Yamamoto's side, he had repeatedly refused to take up the role of a captain whenever there was a vacant spot. Now, this is a choice that had earned him a great deal of mockery over the centuries, but his conviction had never wavered, and it's very funny when you consider how his desire to remain out of the spotlight fits into the Bleach story at almost a meta level. Since he gets practically no screen time and no notable lines, it makes Sasakibe very invisible to both the readers and the characters within the story. And just as Sasakibe was ridiculed within the world of Bleach, a lot of fans had written his character off and had ridiculed him as being one of the weaker characters in the series. Now, don't confuse Sasakibe's lack of presence within the story as a lack of narrative impact, because for a character who was barely around within the story, his death had set off 2 of the biggest events within the entire manga. It was through his death that the Vandenreich had declared war upon the Soul Society, and it was a war that had ultimately led to the death of the head captain. Now, the pain that Yamamoto had felt at his passing is made all the more valid when we consider just how much of an impact his relationship with Sasakibe had on him. Sasakibe was the reason that Yamamoto had changed his name to Genryusai. His friendship with him was the catalyst to his transformation from the monster from the original war between the Quincy into the honorable leader that we all know and love now. The death of Sasakibe had hit Yamamoto so hard that it had pushed him to become that merciless monster once again. It had sent him down a path of vengeance that had ultimately resulted in the death of Yamamoto by the Quincy King Yhwach. Now, knowing how this ranking system works, we should know for sure that he isn't up here just for his narrative impact alone. While we never really see him fight outside of a brief sequence within Yamamoto's flashback, what leads to Sasakibe being above Rangiku and Hisagi is the actual role that he plays within the first war 1000 years ago. Thanks to the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime, the main reason the Soul Society had won the first First War was because Sasakibe had landed a critical hit on Yhwach, which had created an opening for Yamamoto to finish him off. The fact that Sasakibe had pulled off such an insane feat probably makes him one of, if not the most powerful lieutenants that we've ever seen. But because of the very little characterization he gets during the actual story, outside of his relationship with the late head captain Yamamoto, this is about as high as Sasakibe can go within this ranking list. In the number 2 spot, we have the one and only Renji Obarai. He is a man who needs no introduction, because if you're watching this video, then you most definitely know who he is. He is the former 6th seat of the 11th division, and he currently serves as the lieutenant of Squad 6. He's a character who's had his fair share of ups and downs within the story, but his experiences have helped to shape him into the great character that he is. Aside from his absolute loyalty to his captain Byakuya Kuchiki, Renji is a dedicated lieutenant who has never been shown to be lacking with his duties, but that's really the bare minimum. One of the most notable things about Renji is that he's a character who manages to have great narrative weight in both the beginning and the end of the Bleach story. It's an insane feat when you consider just how huge Bleach's cast is. We start off with his introduction within chapter 51 of the manga and episode 15 of the anime. It is through Renji's character where we are introduced to the power system that will come to define Bleach. He's the character who shows Ichigo the Zanpakuto as sentient beings who have their own names and personalities, which is demonstrated when he reveals the Shikai of his Zanpakuto Zabimaru. It is because of this encounter with both Renji and his captain which serves as the catalyst to Ichigo being saved by Uruhara and going through his own training, where he enters his own inner world and meets with Zangetsu, beginning Ichigo's long and tumultuous journey of self-acceptance. Renji also serves as the first major hurdle that Ichigo needs to overcome in order to rescue Rukia from execution. It is through his character that Ichigo's resolve is put to the ultimate test. In my opinion, Renji's place within the narrative peaks at the end of the story, after Yhwach breaks both Ichigo's sword and spirit, and Ichigo falls into a deeper despair than we have ever seen before. Even after his Bankai was restored by Tsukushima and Orihime, his resolve was still shaky, but Renji, who had always been grateful for Ichigo giving him the courage to face the unknown in the Soul Society arc, returns the favor to him by thanking Ichigo for giving him the courage to reconnect with Rukia after 40 years of silence which had torn apart their relationship. He gives Ichigo the courage to challenge Yhwach once more, essentially becoming the story's final pillar of courage which Ichigo rests on. His speech to Ichigo is what kicks off a series of chain reactions that culminates in Ichigo landing the final blow on Yhwach, and this is a credit that not a lot of characters within Bleach can boast about. But if this isn't enough, Renji himself is an excellent character who develops quite a bit within the story. He originally was depicted as a character who always deeply struggled with finding the courage to stand up for his own beliefs, due to how incredibly outclassed he was by everyone around him. This led to him pretending to support the execution of Rukia, his childhood friend, but this was until Ichigo had given him the resolve to fight for what he believes in, regardless of his own fears. And this moment is what sends him down his own path of self-discovery, which culminates in him earning the respect of Zabimaru as well as gaining his true Bankai. Renji undergoes a very satisfactory character journey, and in addition to having both incredible narrative weight and a solid character arc in his own right, he's also very powerful, or at the very least he becomes very powerful within the 1000-Year Blood War arc. For the majority of the series, despite him having a Bankai, Renji was actually a very average lieutenant in terms of power, but after acquiring his true Bankai, he leaves almost every lieutenant in the dust. The power that he gains is so great that it puts him above even some of the captains. So when you combine the narrative weight that Renji has within the story, as well as his own personal journey that he undergoes, and the incredible power that he comes to gain, I believe that Renji is the perfect pick for the number 2 spot on this list. Now, before I reveal my pick for the number 1 lieutenant, I want to go over some honourable mentions. Now, these are lieutenants who for the most part are great, but they couldn't make it onto the list due to one reason or another. But despite this, I still believe that they are worthy of some recognition. So our first honourable mention goes to Ikkaku Madarame. Let's get it out of the way. He is a fantastic character in his own right. His commitment to serving and dying under Kinpachi is a one-of-a-kind loyalty that can only be rivaled by the likes of Sasakibe. The only reason why he didn't make it into the top 5 list is because of the little narrative relevance that he has within the story, despite the fact that he's actually stronger than Rangiku, who's in the number 5 spot in this list. I think Ikkaku was definitely deserving of a bit more screen time, and I wish that we got a bit more development in regards to his power, because during the Arrancar arc, I know that Kubo made a big deal of his Bankai reveal, but we never got to see more of it after that. My next honourable mention is Izuru Kira, who's another great lieutenant whose hatred for fighting writing combined with his interesting power set makes him a fascinating character to witness. But just like Ikkaku, and to an even worse degree, he severely lacks narrative relevance and any extra characterization, and additionally he is weaker than a lot of the picks within my top 5 list, despite the fact that he has a fascinating power through his Zanpakuto Wabisuke. He is followed by Yachiru Kusajishi, the former lieutenant of the 11th Division, who is an extremely lovable character for the amount of fun that she exudes in any given panel that she appears within. But unfortunately she isn't very powerful or developed as a character, and her greatest moments of narrative relevance serve for the development of Kinpachi's character and not her own. The next honorable mention goes to Nanao Issei, the current lieutenant of the 1st Division. She is a rather okay character, and her talent in Kido is probably the only thing that she has going for her power-wise, as well as her connection to head captain Shunsui. But unfortunately, compared to the other lieutenants in this ranking, that's nowhere near enough to earn her a better spot in this list, despite the fact that she has a powerful god-killing Zanpakuto that appears out of nowhere in the final arc. But I think I'll save that discussion for a separate video. Now my final honorable mention goes to Isane Kotetsu, and her relationship with her captain, the late Unohana, is literally all that this lieutenant has going for her. We know literally nothing about her aside from the fact that Kiyone is her sister, and her powers are completely unknown. She honestly only made the honorable mentions because of her connection to Unohana. So yeah, Kubo definitely has his work cut out for him when it comes to developing her within the Hell arc if he continues the manga. Now, with all of this out of the way, we're finally here with the number 1 pick for the best lieutenant, which should honestly come as no surprise because it's gone to the literal queen of the series herself, Rukia Kuchiki. And to be honest, I could just end the video right here and I doubt there'd be a problem due to just how undisputed Rukia's greatness is. But let's begin by explaining why she's earned the number 1 spot. We begin with her narrative relevance, because Rukia's journey begins in literally the first chapter of the manga, as she's the first character we see within the story. And as a fun fact, she was actually the first character that Kubo had designed when he had first come up with Bleach as a story. Her appearance within Ichigo's life is the event that had sparked the beginning of the story that we've all come to know and love. There's literally no Bleach without Rukia, and that alone puts her above pretty much every character aside from Ichigo himself. But it doesn't just stop there. Rukia is an amazing friend to Ichigo, a friend who Ichigo can always count on to snap him out of states of despair. Now while the effectiveness of some of these pep talks do vary, they ultimately result in Ichigo getting back up and moving forward, and this happens several times within the series, most notably during the Fullbring arc where she saves Ichigo by restoring his powers thanks to the help of the Reishi blade. Now some might say that Ichigo and Rukia's friendship is the heart of Bleach. Adding to her narrative influence, Rukia is also the focal point of an entire story arc where her impending execution affects a massive change within the status quo of the Soul Society. Now this is where Aizen reveals his true plans, where Soul Society's rigid law-bound system would begin to change, and finally where Ichigo's journey towards self-acceptance truly begins. We could even say that Rukia's narrative impact is only second to Ichigo himself, which in all honesty is another easy win for Rukia's character. But that's not all, she's also an incredible character in her own right after we see her journey of self-forgiveness, because she was responsible for killing Kai and Shiba. During the Soul Society arc, she had felt guilty about this, and she had felt like she was unworthy of living. But eventually she finds her will to live, and all of it culminates in her attaining her Bankai and earning the approval of her older brother Byakuya Kuchiki. Her relationship with Byakuya in itself is worthy of its own video, and continuing to break down every facet of a character will definitely derail this ranking video. So if you want a deeper look into her character, I'd highly recommend you check out my Rukia character analysis where I break down everything about her in full detail. Now when you consider the power that Rukia possesses at the beginning of the series, which is very much so on the weaker side, she is in fact shown to be a mid-lieutenant tier, with her only real redeeming quality being her skill with Kido. She's depicted as a rather decent Kido user who, while not on the level of Urahara, Tessai or even Aizen, even being able to summon Kido while in a human Gigai. Now we don't know if her Kido prowess improves over the course of the story, but what we do definitely know is that her Zanpakuto power improves. Within the 1000-year Blood War arc, she acquires the true power of a Zanpakuto Sode no Shirayuki, which gives her the ability to lower her body body temperature to absolute zero, as well as being able to freeze enemies within range and to instantly freeze anybody who makes contact with a blade. Now this insane ability is essentially an instant kill power, but it gets even crazier when she activates her Bankai Hakano Togame. Her Bankai transforms her Shinigami attire and overall appearance into one that resembles that of a Zanpakuto spirit. The activation of a Bankai instantly reduces the temperature of the surrounding area to absolute zero, instantly killing anybody who is caught in its white haze. But the only downside of a Bankai is that it restricts her ability to move, and she needs to practice a lot more with it in order to gain full control over her power. The power-ups that both Renji and Rukia undergo during the final arc make them the most powerful lieutenants in the story, and while it's hinted at within Bleach Brave Souls that she's learned to fully control her Bankai and she can move while using it, it would be unfair to use that version of her within this video, so we'll only be talking about what feats she actually demonstrates within the manga. But when it comes to Rukia, when you combine her character journey, narrative relevance, as well as her incredible power, it puts her far above any of the other lieutenants within Bleach. So in the end, this was my top 5 lieutenant ranking list. I would love to know all of your thoughts. Do you agree with the list that I have come up with, or do you have your own personal list with the order rearranged slightly? I would love to know about all of your own top 5 lieutenant rankings, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.